Perched dramatically along Bellevue Avenue with sweeping views of the Atlantic Ocean, Rosecliff Mansion stands as one of Newport, Rhode Island's most elegant symbols of America's Gilded Age excess. Built at the height of high society's summer season, Rosecliff was never meant to be subtle. It was designed to impress, to dazzle, and to host some of the most extravagant parties the era had ever seen. Inspired by the grandeur of French royal architecture and brought to life by one of America's most celebrated architects, this mansion quickly became a social stage where wealth, art, and ambition collided. But Rosecliff is far more than a beautiful facade. Behind its symmetrical white walls lie stories of powerful families, legendary celebrations, architectural brilliance, and a cultural legacy that stretches from turn-of-the-century Newport society to modern Hollywood film sets. From silver heiresses and illusionists like Houdini to blockbuster movies and lavish weddings, Rosecliff has continuously reinvented itself while preserving its original splendor. In this video, we'll step inside Rosecliff Mansion to uncover the history, design, and unforgettable moments that made it one of the most iconic mansions in America. If you're fascinated by historic estates, hidden stories of extreme wealth, and the glamorous world behind the walls of America's grandest homes, you're in the right place. At the turn of the 20th century, Newport, Rhode Island was not merely a seaside resort. It was the epicenter of American wealth, power, and social theater. Rosecliff Mansion was born during this extraordinary period known as the Gilded Age, an era defined by explosive industrial fortunes, rigid social hierarchies, and an obsession with European, aristocratic culture. For America's elite, Newport became the ultimate summer playground, and Rosecliff was designed to be one of its brightest stars. Unlike earlier colonial homes or modest summer cottages, Gilded Age cottages were anything but simple. They were massive estates meant to signal dominance, taste, and legitimacy. Families like the Vanderbilts, Astors, and Belmonts competed relentlessly, not just in wealth, but in architecture, parties, and prestige. Rosecliff entered this world as a statement house, created specifically to elevate its owner into Newport's highest social circles. Commissioned by Theresa Tessie Fair Oelrichs, an heiress to a massive silver fortune, Rosecliff was intended to serve one primary function: entertainment on a grand scale. In a society where invitations determined status and reputation, hosting lavish events was a form of social currency. Rosecliff's very layout, especially its immense ballroom, reflects this reality. The mansion was not built for quiet family life. It was built for spectacle. During Newport's peak summers, social schedules were packed with dinners, dances, musicales, and costume balls that followed strict etiquette. A successful season could cement a family's standing for years, while social missteps could lead to quiet exclusion. Rosecliff became one of the most sought-after venues for these gatherings, offering both visual splendor and modern amenities that surpassed many of its rivals. The Gilded Age was also marked by contradiction. While unimaginable wealth flowed into Newport, much of America struggled with labor unrest, poverty, and inequality. Rosecliff, like other mansions of its time, stood as a physical embodiment of that divide, gleaming, pristine, and isolated from the realities beyond its gates. Yet this contrast is precisely what makes Rosecliff historically significant. It represents not just beauty, but ambition, excess, and the psychology of a rising American elite seeking validation through grandeur. As Newport society began to decline after World War I, the era that created Rosecliff slowly faded. However, the mansion remains a remarkably intact time capsule. Walking through its halls today is not just an architectural experience. It is a journey into a world where wealth was performed, social rank was choreographed, and summer seasons were as competitive as they were glamorous. Rosecliff's origins are inseparable from the Gilded Age itself. It was not simply built during that time. It was built because of it, shaped by its values, fueled by its fortunes, and immortalized by its social rituals. Understanding this context is essential to understanding why Rosecliff looks the way it does, why it functioned as it did, and why it continues to captivate audiences more than a century later. Rosecliff Mansion would never have existed without Theresa Tessie Fair Oelrichs, a woman whose wealth, ambition, and social aspirations were perfectly aligned with the excesses of the Gilded Age. Born into one of America's great mining fortunes, Tessie Fair was the daughter of James Graham Fair, one of the famous Silver Kings of Nevada. His vast Comstock Lode fortune placed Tessie among the wealthiest women in the country before she ever set foot in Newport society. Despite her immense fortune, Tessie faced a challenge common among America's newly rich elite: acceptance. Old money families, particularly in Newport, guarded their social circles fiercely. Wealth alone was not enough. It had to be displayed correctly, tastefully, and on a scale that matched or exceeded that of established dynasties. Tessie understood this reality with remarkable clarity, and Rosecliff became her answer. In 1890, Tessie married Hermann Oelrichs, a German-born shipping magnate. The marriage brought together enormous wealth and international prestige, positioning the couple as rising stars in elite social circles. However, Tessie was determined not merely to participate in Newport society, but to dominate it. She envisioned a residence that would surpass others in elegance and functionality, especially when it came to hosting grand events. Tessie's role in the creation of Rosecliff was deeply hands-on. She was not a passive patron. She had clear expectations and demands. She wanted a house inspired by European aristocracy, one that could rival French palaces and serve as a theatrical backdrop for social performances. This vision led her to commission Stanford White, one of America's most celebrated architects, and to insist on a design centered around entertainment rather than domestic comfort. Her focus on social gatherings shaped every major decision. The enormous ballroom, still the largest among Newport mansions, was a direct reflection of Tessie's priorities. Unlike other mansions where ballrooms were secondary features, Rosecliff's ballroom was the heart of the house. Tessie intended it to be unforgettable, a place where guests would leave impressed, envious, and eager for the next invitation. Tessie Fair Oelrichs was also known for her boldness. She challenged Newport norms by hosting parties that were larger, more elaborate, and more theatrical than what many considered appropriate. These events helped establish Rosecliff as a premier social venue and cemented Tessie's reputation as a formidable hostess. Through sheer spectacle and precision, she succeeded in claiming her place among Newport's elite. Yet her story also reflects the fragility of Gilded Age fortunes. After her father's death, family disputes and financial complications dramatically reduced her wealth. While Rosecliff remained magnificent, the economic reality behind it shifted. Tessie eventually sold the mansion, marking the end of her direct connection to the estate she had so carefully imagined. Today, Tessie Fair Oelrichs is remembered not just as a wealthy heiress, but as a woman who used architecture as a tool of social power. Rosecliff stands as her most enduring legacy, a monument to ambition, confidence, and the belief that grandeur could open doors that money alone could not. To understand Rosecliff Mansion's enduring impact, one must understand the architect behind it. Stanford White, a dominant figure in American architecture, and a partner in the legendary firm McKim. Mead White. At the height of the Gilded Age, no architectural name carried more prestige. Hiring Stanford White was not simply a design decision. It was a declaration of social seriousness, taste, and ambition. McKim, Mead White defined what elite American architecture looked like in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The firm was responsible for some of the most iconic structures in the United States, including New York's original Pennsylvania Station, Madison Square Garden, and countless mansions for the nation's wealthiest families. Their work blended classical European influences with modern American engineering, creating buildings that felt timeless, powerful, and unmistakably elite. Stanford White, in particular, was known for his theatrical approach to architecture. He believed buildings should evoke emotion, command attention, and serve as stages for human interaction. This philosophy made him the perfect match for Theresa Fair Oelrichs, whose primary goal for Rosecliff was to create a social showpiece. White understood that Rosecliff was not meant to be a home in the traditional sense. It was meant to be experienced. White drew inspiration from French aristocratic architecture, especially the Grand Trianon at Versailles, translating its elegance into an American context. However, Rosecliff was not a copy. White adapted classical proportions and symmetry while incorporating modern structural techniques that allowed for unprecedented interior space. The mansion's clean white facade, rhythmic windows, and balanced form project restraint and confidence rather than ostentation, an intentional contrast to more heavily ornamented Newport estates. Inside, White's brilliance becomes even more apparent. The ballroom, spanning the entire length of the mansion, is a masterclass in spatial drama. With its soaring ceilings, oversized windows, and seamless flow, the room was engineered to accommodate hundreds of guests without feeling crowded. This was architectural choreography, movement, light, and scale working together to enhance social interaction. White also understood how architecture could shape perception. Approaching Rosecliff from Bellevue Avenue, the mansion appears elegant but controlled. Only upon entering does its true scale reveal itself. This deliberate reveal heightened the emotional impact on guests, reinforcing Rosecliff's reputation as a place of surprise and spectacle. Tragically, Stanford White's life ended violently in 1906, just a few years after Rosecliff's completion. His death shocked American society and cast a shadow over his legacy. Yet his architectural influence only grew stronger with time. Rosecliff remains one of his purest and most refined residential works, free of excess, confident in form, and perfectly aligned with its purpose. Through Stanford White and McKim, Mead and White, Rosecliff became more than a mansion. It became a carefully composed architectural performance where every line, proportion, and space served a greater social narrative. Their work ensured that Rosecliff would not merely reflect the Gilded Age, but define it. Rosecliff Mansion stands apart from many of Newport's grand estates because of its distinctly French identity. While other Gilded Age mansions leaned toward Renaissance revival or English influences, Rosecliff drew its soul from French Baroque classicism, specifically the Grand Trianon at Versailles. This was not an accidental aesthetic choice. It was a deliberate strategy rooted in power, prestige, and cultural signaling. During the Gilded Age, America's elite looked to Europe, especially France, for validation. French royal architecture represented centuries of wealth, monarchy, and refined taste. By modeling Rosecliff after the Grand Trianon, Theresa Fair Oelrichs aligned herself not just with wealth, but with royalty-level elegance. The message was subtle but unmistakable. Rosecliff was not merely a mansion, it was an American echo of a royal retreat. The Grand Trianon, originally commissioned by Louis XIV, was designed as a pleasure palace, a space for leisure, beauty, and social performance rather than governance. This concept translated perfectly to Rosecliff's purpose. Like its French predecessor, Rosecliff was built to host, entertain, and impress. Stanford White captured this spirit through symmetry, proportion, and restraint rather than excessive ornamentation. Rosecliff's white facade mirrors the pale stone of French palaces, giving the mansion a luminous, almost ethereal presence, especially in Newport's coastal light. The building's horizontal emphasis, long terraces, and evenly spaced windows reflect classical French discipline. There is no single dominant tower or dramatic vertical thrust. Instead, the mansion stretches gracefully across its site, reinforcing balance and calm authority. Inside, French influence continues through refined decorative elements rather than overwhelming detail. Moldings, columns, and wall treatments echo European classical interiors while remaining light and open. This approach allowed Rosecliff to feel both luxurious and modern, avoiding the heavy, museum-like atmosphere found in some contemporaneous estates. Perhaps the most striking translation of Versailles-inspired design is how Rosecliff interacts with its surroundings. Just as French palaces were designed to frame gardens and landscapes, Rosecliff's layout emphasizes views toward the ocean and terraces. Large windows flood the interiors with natural light, blurring the boundary between indoor elegance and outdoor grandeur. This French Baroque influence also served a social function. Guests familiar with European travel would immediately recognize the architectural language, associating Rosecliff with sophistication and cultural literacy. For those less familiar, The effect was equally powerful, an instinctive sense that this was a place of elevated status and international taste. By choosing the Grand Trianon as its model, Rosecliff avoided imitation and instead achieved interpretation. It captured the spirit of French aristocratic leisure while adapting it to American scale, technology, and lifestyle. The result is a mansion that feels timeless rather than dated, restrained rather than excessive, and confident rather than flamboyant. Rosecliff's Versailles influence is not about copying history. It is about channeling its authority. In doing so, the mansion became a physical bridge between old-world grandeur and new-world ambition, perfectly embodying the aspirations of America's Gilded Age elite. Rosecliff Mansion stands apart from many of Newport's grand estates because of its distinctly French identity. While other Gilded Age mansions leaned toward Renaissance revival or English influences, Rosecliff drew its soul from French Baroque classicism, specifically the Grand Trianon at Versailles. This was not an accidental aesthetic choice. It was a deliberate strategy rooted in power, prestige, and cultural signaling. During the Gilded Age, America's elite looked to Europe, especially France, for validation. French royal architecture represented centuries of wealth, monarchy, and refined taste. By modeling Rosecliff after the Grand Trianon, Theresa Fair Oelrichs aligned herself not just with wealth, but with royalty-level elegance. The message was subtle but unmistakable. Rosecliff was not merely a mansion, it was an American echo of a royal retreat. The Grand Trianon, originally commissioned by Louis XIV, was designed as a pleasure palace, a space for leisure, beauty, and social performance rather than governance. This concept translated perfectly to Rosecliff's purpose. Like its French predecessor, Rosecliff was built to host, entertain, and impress. Stanford White captured this spirit through symmetry, proportion, and restraint rather than excessive ornamentation. Rosecliff's white facade mirrors the pale stone of French palaces, giving the mansion a luminous, almost ethereal presence, especially in Newport's coastal light. The building's horizontal emphasis, long terraces, and evenly spaced windows reflect classical French discipline. There is no single dominant tower or dramatic vertical thrust. Instead, the mansion stretches gracefully across its site, reinforcing balance and calm authority. Inside, French influence continues through refined decorative elements rather than overwhelming detail. Moldings, columns, and wall treatments echo European classical interiors while remaining light and open. This approach allowed Rosecliff to feel both luxurious and modern, avoiding the heavy, museum-like atmosphere found in some contemporaneous estates. Perhaps the most striking translation of Versailles-inspired design is how Rosecliff interacts with its surroundings. Just as French palaces were designed to frame gardens and landscapes, Rosecliff's layout emphasizes views toward the ocean and terraces. Large windows flood the interiors with natural light, blurring the boundary between indoor elegance and outdoor grandeur. This French Baroque influence also served a social function. Guests familiar with European travel would immediately recognize the architectural language, associating Rosecliff with sophistication and cultural literacy. For those less familiar, the effect was equally powerful, an instinctive sense that this was a place of elevated status and international taste. By choosing the Grand Trianon as its model, Rosecliff avoided imitation and instead achieved interpretation. It captured the spirit of French aristocratic leisure while adapting it to American scale, technology, and lifestyle. The result is a mansion that feels timeless rather than dated, restrained rather than excessive, and confident rather than flamboyant. Rosecliff's Versailles influence is not about copying history. It is about channeling its authority. In doing so, the mansion became a physical bridge between old-world grandeur and new-world ambition, perfectly embodying the aspirations of America's Gilded Age elite. The construction of Rosecliff Mansion between 1898 and 1902 was a carefully orchestrated undertaking that reflected both the technological progress of the era and the uncompromising expectations of America's elite. From the beginning, Rosecliff was conceived not as a long-term family residence, but as a purpose-built entertainment palace, and this intent shaped every phase of its construction. Theresa Fair Oelrichs spared no expense in bringing her vision to life. While the exact final cost of Rosecliff has never been definitively recorded, estimates place it at hundreds of thousands of dollars at the turn of the 20th century, a sum that would translate into many millions today. Yet for a Gilded Age heiress, cost was secondary to impact. The mansion needed to be completed flawlessly, on schedule, and at a level that would rival or surpass Newport's most celebrated estates. Construction materials were selected for both beauty and durability. The mansion's exterior was clad in white stucco over brick, a choice that allowed Rosecliff to emulate the smooth stone appearance of French palaces while standing up to Newport's harsh coastal climate. Steel framing, a relatively modern innovation at the time, was incorporated to support Rosecliff's vast interior spaces, particularly the enormous ballroom, which required structural solutions far beyond traditional residential design. Stanford White's architectural plans demanded precision. Symmetry was critical, and even minor deviations could disrupt the mansion's visual balance. Craftsmen, masons, plasterers, and artisans worked with meticulous attention to proportion and alignment. Much of the decorative interior work, including moldings, columns, and ceiling details, was executed by skilled European-trained craftsmen, reinforcing the old-world aesthetic Tessie desired. One of the most technically ambitious aspects of Rosecliff's construction was its ballroom, the largest in Newport. Creating such an expansive, unobstructed space required innovative engineering. Steel beams were hidden within classical architectural elements, allowing the room to appear light and elegant while remaining structurally sound. This invisible marriage of tradition and technology was a hallmark of McKim, Mead, and White's approach. Modern conveniences were also integrated during construction. Rosecliff featured up-to-date plumbing, heating, and electrical systems, essential for hosting large gatherings. Kitchens and service areas were designed to operate efficiently behind the scenes, enabling seamless events where guests rarely saw the labor required to maintain such extravagance. By the time Rosecliff was completed in 1902, it stood as a testament to speed as much as splendor. Many Newport mansions took far longer to complete, but Rosecliff's focused purpose allowed for a relatively streamlined build. Every decision, from materials to layout, served a singular goal: to create the ultimate venue for high society entertainment. Rosecliff's construction represents more than a building project. It reflects the mindset of the Gilded Age itself. Wealth was expected to be visible, architecture was a competitive sport, and houses were judged not by comfort, but by their ability to impress. In this context, Rosecliff emerged not merely as another mansion, but as a precisely engineered stage for social dominance, built quickly, lavishly, and without compromise. Rosecliff Mansion is often described as elegant, but its true power lies in how its architectural features were engineered to create awe on demand. Every major element of the house was designed not just for beauty, but for impact, shaping how guests moved, gathered, and remembered their experience. Unlike many Newport mansions that emphasized private luxury, Rosecliff focused on public spectacle, and its most iconic features reflect that priority. At the center of Rosecliff's identity is its legendary ballroom, the largest of any Newport mansion. Stretching the full length of the house, the ballroom was conceived as a single, uninterrupted space, a daring architectural move at the time. Its soaring ceiling, rhythmic pilasters, and towering windows create an atmosphere of light and openness rarely found in residential buildings. During events, the room could accommodate hundreds of guests, orchestras, and elaborate decorations without ever feeling confined. The ballroom's design is deceptively restrained. Rather than overwhelming ornamentation, Stanford White relied on proportion, symmetry, and scale. The simplicity allowed hosts to transform the space with flowers, fabrics, and lighting for each event, making every gathering feel unique. This flexibility was crucial in a society where repetition could dull prestige. At Rosecliff, no two balls ever needed to feel the same. Equally memorable is Rosecliff's grand staircase, a sweeping ceremonial feature that served both functional and theatrical purposes. Positioned to command attention, The staircase allowed guests to make dramatic entrances, a key element of Gilded Age social rituals. Descending the staircase was as much a performance as arriving at the mansion itself, reinforcing the idea that Rosecliff was a stage and its guests were actors. The staircase's graceful curves and balanced proportions echo French classical design, but its placement reflects American social habits. It funnels guests toward the main entertainment spaces, guiding movement naturally while heightening anticipation. This controlled flow of people is a recurring theme throughout Rosecliff's architecture. Beyond these headline features, Rosecliff's overall symmetry is one of its most defining traits. From the facade to the interior layout, balance governs every decision. Rooms are arranged to create clear sightlines and intuitive navigation, ensuring that even first-time visitors feel oriented. This sense of order contributes to the mansion's calm authority. It never feels chaotic, despite its size. Large windows throughout the mansion serve both aesthetic and practical purposes. They flood interiors with natural light and frame views of the Atlantic Ocean, connecting indoor elegance with the surrounding landscape. During daytime events, sunlight amplified Rosecliff's white and cream interiors, enhancing the mansion's luminous quality. Service spaces, though largely hidden, were also carefully designed. Hallways, staircases, and preparation rooms allowed staff to move efficiently without disrupting events. This invisible architecture was essential to maintaining the illusion of effortless luxury that defined successful Gilded Age entertaining. Together, these architectural features form a cohesive experience. Rosecliff does not rely on one dramatic element alone. It orchestrates many, guiding guests through a sequence of impressions that build toward unforgettable moments. The result is a mansion that feels purposeful, confident, and eternally suited to celebration. While Rosecliff Mansion is often celebrated for its exterior symmetry and grand entertaining spaces, its interior design reveals a more subtle kind of brilliance. Unlike other Gilded Age mansions that emphasized layered opulence and heavy decoration, Rosecliff's interiors were intentionally restrained. This was not a limitation, it was a strategy. The mansion's rooms were designed to function as flexible stages, capable of transforming to suit different social occasions while maintaining an atmosphere of refined elegance. Stanford White approached Rosecliff's interiors with a classical mindset. Walls, ceilings, and moldings draw from French neoclassical traditions, favoring clean lines, harmonious proportions, and light color palettes. Whites, creams, soft golds, and pale pastels dominate the interiors, reflecting light and enhancing the mansion's airy feel. This restrained palette allowed the architecture itself to take center stage, rather than competing with furniture or decoration. The principal rooms, including the salon, dining room, and drawing rooms, were arranged to flow naturally into one another. This open sequence encouraged movement and conversation, essential elements of Gilded Age entertaining. Guests could circulate freely, experiencing different atmospheres without ever feeling confined. This sense of openness distinguished Rosecliff from more compartmentalized estates. One of the most striking aspects of Rosecliff's interior design is how deliberately non-personal it is. Unlike mansions filled with family portraits, heirlooms, and intimate personal touches, Rosecliff's rooms were designed to impress a crowd rather than reflect private life. This reinforces the idea that the mansion's primary purpose was public performance, not domestic comfort. The dining room, though elegant, was not oversized, emphasizing that Rosecliff's most important gatherings occurred in shared communal spaces rather than around formal meals. Meanwhile, service areas were carefully concealed, allowing food, music, and supplies to appear effortlessly. This illusion of ease was critical to maintaining the mansion's polished image. Ceiling treatments and architectural detailing were kept sophisticated but controlled. Decorative plasterwork, classical pilasters, and symmetrical layouts create visual rhythm without overwhelming the senses. Chandeliers and wall sconces provided warm, flattering light, enhancing both the rooms and the guests themselves, a subtle but intentional detail. Over time, as Rosecliff transitioned from private residence to historic house museum, its interiors were preserved and interpreted to reflect their original Gilded Age character. Today, Period furnishings help visitors imagine the mansion as it once functioned, but the rooms remain open enough to host modern events. This adaptability is a testament to the original design philosophy. Rosecliff's interior design reveals a mansion that understood its mission. It did not aim to overwhelm with excess, but to create an environment where architecture, light, and movement work together seamlessly. In doing so, Rosecliff achieved a rare balance. Interiors that feel grand without being heavy, elegant without being fragile, and timeless without being static. Rosecliff Mansion's grandeur does not end at its walls. Its setting along Newport's famed Bellevue Avenue, overlooking the Atlantic Ocean, is an essential part of its identity. Like the great European estates that inspired it, Rosecliff was designed as a complete visual composition. Architecture, gardens, and landscape working together to create an unforgettable impression. The mansion does not merely sit on its site, it commands it. The oceanfront location was a powerful symbol during the Gilded Age. In Newport society, proximity to the sea meant prestige, exclusivity, and escape from urban life. Rosecliff's placement offered sweeping views of the Atlantic while allowing guests to enjoy cooling breezes during crowded summer events. These natural advantages were not incidental. They were carefully leveraged as part of the mansion's social appeal. Rosecliff's gardens were designed to complement its French-inspired architecture. Rather than sprawling naturalistic landscapes, the grounds emphasize order, symmetry, and formality. Low hedges, manicured lawns, and geometric layouts echo the disciplined elegance of European palace gardens. This controlled aesthetic reinforced the mansion's refined character and framed it as a place of cultivated beauty rather than rustic retreat. The most iconic outdoor space is the ocean-facing terrace, which extends the mansion's entertainment areas into the open air. During the Gilded Age, this terrace functioned as an extension of the ballroom, a place where guests could mingle, enjoy fresh air, and admire the view between dances. At sunset, the terrace transformed into one of Newport's most dramatic social settings, with the Atlantic providing a constantly changing backdrop. Large windows and doors throughout Rosecliff create a seamless connection between interior and exterior spaces. From inside, guests were never far from views of sky, water, and gardens. This visual continuity enhanced the mansion's sense of openness and light, reinforcing its reputation as one of Newport's most luminous estates. Unlike some Newport mansions with extensive private grounds, Rosecliff's landscape was intentionally restrained. The focus remained on vistas rather than vegetation, ensuring that nothing competed with the mansion's facade or the ocean beyond it. This restraint reflects Stanford White's architectural philosophy. Elegance achieved through proportion and balance rather than excess. The oceanfront setting also played a practical role. Large outdoor areas allowed Rosecliff to accommodate overflow crowds during major events, and the proximity to Cliff Walk made the mansion a visible landmark for passers-by. Being seen at Rosecliff, even from a distance, carried social significance. Today, the gardens and terraces remain one of Rosecliff's greatest assets. They continue to host weddings, receptions, and public events, just as they did over a century ago. Visitors walking the grounds experience Rosecliff much as Gilded Age guests once did, moving from carefully composed architecture to open horizons where land meets sea. In many ways, Rosecliff's setting completes its story. The mansion's elegance gains depth from its surroundings, while the ocean amplifies its sense of drama and permanence. Together, architecture and landscape form a unified stage, one that has captivated guests, visitors, and audiences for generations. Rosecliff Mansion earned its legendary status not simply because of its architecture, but because of what happened inside its walls. From the moment it opened, Rosecliff became one of Newport's premier entertainment venues, synonymous with lavish parties, unforgettable spectacles, and social dominance. In a society where reputation was built on visibility and invitation lists, Rosecliff was a powerful instrument of prestige. Theresa Fair Oelrichs envisioned Rosecliff as the ultimate stage for entertainment, and she wasted no time bringing that vision to life. Her events were larger, more theatrical, and more ambitious than those hosted at many neighboring estates. Guests arrived expecting to be impressed, and Rosecliff rarely disappointed. The mansion's immense ballroom allowed for gatherings on a scale that few private homes could match. One of the most famous events in Rosecliff's history was a lavish party featuring the legendary illusionist Harry Houdini. At the height of his fame, Houdini performed escapes and illusions that left guests astonished. Hosting such a figure was a bold move, blending high society with popular spectacle and ensuring that Rosecliff remained the subject of conversation long after the evening ended. These events followed strict social codes. Invitations were coveted, attire was formal, and behavior was scrutinized. Balls often featured live orchestras, elaborate floral arrangements, and meticulously planned decor that transformed the ballroom into ever-changing fantasy settings. Rosecliff's restrained interior design allowed hosts to reinvent the space repeatedly, keeping each event fresh and memorable. Beyond private balls, Rosecliff later became a hub for major public and cultural events. As Newport society evolved and private fortunes declined, the mansion adapted rather than faded. Over time, Rosecliff hosted charity galas, exhibitions, and some of Newport's most important social gatherings, maintaining its role as a center of celebration. In modern times, Rosecliff has gained renewed fame as one of the most sought-after wedding venues in the United States. Its ballroom and oceanfront terrace offer a cinematic setting that echoes its Gilded Age origins. Couples today step into the same spaces where elite society once danced, continuing the mansion's legacy as a place where life's most important moments are celebrated. What makes Rosecliff's event history unique is continuity. Few estates have maintained such a consistent identity as a gathering place across more than a century. While ownership, purpose, and audiences have changed, the mansion's function as a social stage has remained intact. Rosecliff's parties were never just about entertainment. They were performances of power, taste, and belonging. Each event reinforced the mansion's reputation and its owner's social standing. Even today, visitors sense that Rosecliff was built for people, for movement, music, laughter, and spectacle. In this way, Rosecliff lives up to its original purpose. It is not frozen in time as a silent monument, but alive with echoes of celebration. The mansion's walls may be quiet now, but its legacy as Newport's most glamorous gathering place remains unmistakable. Rosecliff Mansion's history is defined not only by its glamorous beginnings, but by its remarkable ability to adapt. Unlike many Gilded Age estates that fell into disrepair or were demolished as fortunes faded, Rosecliff survived by evolving. Its ownership and uses over time reflect broader changes in American society, wealth, and historic preservation. After its completion in 1902, Rosecliff served as the Newport summer residence of Theresa Fair Oelrichs and Hermann Oelrichs. During this early period, the mansion functioned exactly as intended, as a grand venue for elite entertaining. However, financial challenges following the death of Tessie's father and shifting economic realities eventually forced the Oelrichs family to sell the property. In 1911, Rosecliff was purchased by Nevin and George Wetmore, prominent figures in Newport society. Under their ownership, the mansion retained its social prominence, continuing to host large gatherings and maintaining its reputation as a premier entertainment space. The Wetmores preserved Rosecliff's architectural integrity, ensuring that its original design remained largely unchanged. As the Gilded Age gave way to the turbulence of the 20th century, including World War I, the Great Depression, and World War II, maintaining massive estates became increasingly difficult. Many Newport mansions were abandoned, sold, or demolished during this period. Rosecliff, however, benefited from owners who recognized its cultural and architectural value. In 1971, Rosecliff entered a new chapter when it was donated to the Preservation Society of Newport County. This moment marked a turning point, transforming the mansion from a private residence into a publicly accessible historic house museum. The donation ensured Rosecliff's long-term preservation and opened its doors to visitors from around the world. Under the Preservation Society's care, Rosecliff was carefully restored and interpreted to reflect its Gilded Age character. Importantly, the mansion was not treated as a static relic. Its expansive rooms and durable design allowed it to continue functioning as an event space, generating revenue to support ongoing preservation efforts. Throughout the late 20th and early 21st centuries, Rosecliff hosted exhibitions, educational programs, and major cultural events. Its dual role as museum and event venue became a model for sustainable preservation, balancing public access with financial viability. This adaptive approach also helped Rosecliff remain relevant to new generations. Rather than fading into obscurity, the mansion became woven into contemporary life, a place where history is experienced rather than simply observed. Rosecliff's ownership timeline tells a story of resilience. Each transition brought new challenges, but also new opportunities. Thanks to careful stewardship and thoughtful adaptation, Rosecliff avoided the fate of many Gilded Age mansions that were lost forever. Today, Rosecliff stands not just as a reminder of past extravagance, but as a success story in historic preservation. Its journey from private palace to public treasure ensures that its legacy will continue, not as a memory, but as a living part of Newport's cultural landscape. Preserving Rosecliff Mansion has been a complex and ongoing challenge, shaped by time, climate, and changing expectations of historic stewardship. Situated along the Atlantic coast, Rosecliff faces constant exposure to salt air, moisture, and harsh weather, elements that accelerate deterioration. Its survival into the modern era is not accidental. It is the result of deliberate, sustained preservation efforts. When Rosecliff was donated to the Preservation Society of Newport County in 1971, the mansion required careful evaluation. Decades of use had taken their toll, and preservation standards were evolving. The Society faced a critical decision: whether to freeze Rosecliff in a single historical moment or allow it to function as a living building. They chose the latter, committing to restoration practices that honored the mansion's Gilded Age character while enabling continued use. One of the greatest preservation challenges has been maintaining Rosecliff's exterior. The mansion's white stucco facade, while visually striking, requires constant care. Salt exposure and temperature fluctuations cause cracking and erosion, making regular inspection and repair essential. Preservation teams have worked to replicate original materials and finishes as closely as possible, ensuring that repairs remain historically accurate. Interior preservation has focused on architectural integrity rather than excessive reconstruction. Because Rosecliff's interiors were originally restrained, restorers emphasized maintaining original proportions, moldings, and spatial relationships. Where period furnishings were missing, historically appropriate pieces were sourced to convey the mansion's original atmosphere without cluttering its spaces. In recent decades, Rosecliff has undergone major restoration projects to address structural needs, mechanical systems, and visitor safety. Modern climate control, electrical upgrades, and accessibility improvements were carefully integrated to minimize visual impact. These behind-the-scenes updates are critical to preserving the mansion while meeting contemporary standards. A significant recent restoration initiative focused on strengthening Rosecliff's ability to host large events without compromising its historic fabric. Floors, ceilings, and support systems were evaluated and reinforced where necessary. This ensured that Rosecliff could continue functioning as an event venue, a role essential to its financial sustainability. Preservation at Rosecliff is guided by a philosophy of reversibility and respect. Changes are designed so they can be undone in the future without damage to original materials. This approach reflects best practices in modern conservation and acknowledges that preservation is an evolving discipline. Equally important is public education. Restoration efforts are often accompanied by exhibitions and interpretive materials that explain why preservation matters. By making the process visible, Rosecliff helps visitors understand that historic mansions are not static monuments, but fragile structures requiring constant care. Through decades of restoration, Rosecliff has retained its identity. It has not been overpolished or stripped of character. Instead, it remains authentic, bearing subtle signs of age while continuing to function as a vibrant cultural space. Preserving Rosecliff is ultimately an act of stewardship. It ensures that future generations can experience not only the mansion's beauty, but the values, ambitions, and artistry of the era that created it. In this sense, every restoration effort adds a new chapter to Rosecliff's story, one defined by responsibility, respect, and resilience. Today, Rosecliff Mansion functions not only as a preserved Gilded Age estate, but as a carefully managed historic house museum that welcomes visitors from around the world. Operating under the stewardship of the Preservation Society of Newport County, Rosecliff balances accessibility with conservation, allowing the public to experience its grandeur while protecting its fragile historic fabric. Unlike many historic homes that rely heavily on roped-off rooms and distant viewing, Rosecliff offers a more immersive experience. Its large open spaces, especially the ballroom, allow visitors to move freely and absorb the scale and light that define the mansion's original purpose. This openness reflects Rosecliff's historical role as a gathering place rather than a private retreat. Museum operations are designed to highlight Rosecliff's architectural story as much as its social history. Tours emphasize how the mansion functioned, why it was built, and what made it unique among Newport's estates. Rather than overwhelming visitors with dates and names, interpretation focuses on themes: entertainment, ambition, design, and spectacle. Self-guided audio tours provide historical context while allowing visitors to explore at their own pace. This approach mirrors the mansion's original social environment, where guests circulated freely rather than following rigid pathways. For those seeking deeper insight, guided tours and special programs offer expert perspectives on architecture, preservation, and Gilded Age society. Seasonal programming plays a key role in Rosecliff's museum identity. Temporary exhibitions, floral installations, and art-focused events transform the interiors while respecting their architectural framework. These exhibitions echo Rosecliff's historic adaptability, reinforcing the idea that the mansion has always been a space for transformation and display. Behind the scenes, museum operations involve constant monitoring. Visitor flow is carefully managed to prevent wear on floors, staircases, and architectural details. Environmental controls regulate temperature and humidity, protecting plasterwork and finishes from damage. Staff and volunteers are trained not only in hospitality, but in preservation awareness. Public access is also supported by educational initiatives. Rosecliff hosts lectures, school programs, and collaborative events that place the mansion within broader conversations about American history, architecture, and social change. These programs ensure that Rosecliff remains relevant, not merely decorative. One of the most distinctive aspects of Rosecliff's museum operation is its continued use as an event venue. Weddings, galas, and cultural gatherings take place alongside daily tours. While this dual role presents logistical challenges, it also reinforces Rosecliff's original identity. The mansion was built to host people, and it still does. Experiencing Rosecliff today is not about stepping into a frozen past. It is about entering a living space where history, architecture, and modern life intersect. The museum's approach allows visitors to feel the mansion's energy, scale, and intent, qualities that photographs alone can never capture. Through thoughtful operations and interpretation, Rosecliff remains accessible, engaging, and alive. It stands as proof that historic mansions can thrive in the present while honoring the past, not by retreating into silence, but by welcoming the world inside. One of Rosecliff Mansion's most distinctive qualities is its ability to transform without losing its identity. From its earliest days as a Gilded Age entertainment palace to its role as a modern museum, Rosecliff has embraced change as part of its character. This adaptability has made it an ideal setting for art, design, and temporary exhibitions, allowing the mansion to remain dynamic rather than static. Unlike heavily furnished historic houses, Rosecliff's interiors were originally designed with restraint and openness. This quality has proven invaluable for exhibitions. The mansion's large rooms, neutral color palette, and abundant natural light provide a refined backdrop that complements contemporary and historical displays alike. Exhibitions do not compete with the architecture, they converse with it. The Preservation Society of Newport County has leveraged this flexibility to host rotating exhibitions that explore themes ranging from floral design and fashion to fine art and decorative arts. These installations reinterpret Rosecliff's spaces while respecting their architectural framework. Temporary elements are carefully installed to avoid damage, adhering to strict conservation standards. Floral exhibitions are among Rosecliff's most celebrated programs. Designers transform rooms with elaborate arrangements that echo the mansion's elegance while introducing color, texture, and seasonal energy. These events recall the floral spectacles of Gilded Age balls, when fresh flowers were used lavishly to signal wealth and refinement. Fashion and design exhibitions have also found a natural home at Rosecliff. The mansion's classical proportions and cinematic scale make it an ideal setting for showcasing couture, textiles, and artistic craftsmanship. Visitors experience these displays as immersive environments rather than isolated objects, reinforcing Rosecliff's identity as a stage for visual storytelling. Importantly, these exhibitions help bridge the gap between past and present. Contemporary art and modern design placed within a Gilded Age setting invite dialogue across centuries. This contrast encourages visitors to reconsider Rosecliff not as a relic, but as an evolving cultural space. From an operational perspective, temporary exhibitions serve a vital role. They encourage repeat visitation, attract new audiences, and support ongoing preservation through increased engagement. Each exhibition becomes an event in itself, echoing Rosecliff's original purpose as a place where something new and exciting was always happening. Exhibitions at Rosecliff are not permanent alterations, they are intentional moments. Once dismantled, the mansion returns to its classical calm, ready for the next transformation. This rhythm of change and restoration mirrors Rosecliff's historical use. Space is constantly reimagined for each season's social calendar. In many ways, Rosecliff's embrace of temporary exhibitions is one of its greatest strengths. It allows the mansion to remain relevant without compromising authenticity. Visitors do not simply observe history. They experience it layered with contemporary creativity. Through art and design, Rosecliff continues to tell new stories. Each exhibition adds a chapter to its legacy, proving that great architecture does not resist change. It invites it. Seasonal events have always been central to Rosecliff Mansion's identity. From its earliest days as a Gilded Age entertainment palace to its modern role as a cultural venue, Rosecliff has thrived on the rhythm of the social calendar. Annual events do more than draw visitors. They reconnect the mansion to its original purpose as a place of gathering, spectacle, and shared experience. During the Gilded Age, Newport's summer season dictated life at Rosecliff. Balls, musicals, and formal receptions followed a carefully choreographed schedule, with each event reinforcing social status and visibility. Today's seasonal programming echoes that tradition, replacing elite guest lists with public participation while preserving the spirit of celebration. One of Rosecliff's most anticipated annual highlights is its role in Newport's flower and garden-themed events. Floral showcases transform the mansion's interiors with imaginative arrangements that reflect both historic elegance and modern creativity. These installations fill Rosecliff with color and fragrance, creating a sensory experience that draws thousands of visitors. Holiday programming also plays a major role. Seasonal decorations reinterpret Gilded Age aesthetics through festive displays, bringing warmth and intimacy to Rosecliff's classical interiors. These events invite visitors to imagine how the mansion might have appeared during winter celebrations, even though Newport's elite typically occupied their estates only during the summer months. Culinary and cultural festivals have become part of Rosecliff's modern calendar as well. Wine tastings, food-focused events, and collaborative programs introduce new audiences to the mansion. These gatherings reinforce Rosecliff's identity as a social space rather than a passive exhibit. Educational symposia, lectures, and themed tours often accompany seasonal events, adding depth and context. Visitors are encouraged not only to admire Rosecliff's beauty, but to understand the social rituals, craftsmanship, and historical forces that shaped it. What makes Rosecliff's annual events particularly effective is their adaptability. The mansion's open interiors and durable design allow for creative programming without compromising preservation. Each event is carefully planned to protect historic materials while delivering an engaging experience. These seasonal gatherings also play a crucial financial role. Revenue generated through special events supports ongoing maintenance, restoration, and educational initiatives. In this way, celebration and preservation are directly linked, much as they were during the Gilded Age, when entertaining justified architectural extravagance. For visitors, seasonal events offer a chance to experience Rosecliff in new ways. No two visits feel the same. Lighting, decor, and atmosphere shift with each program, revealing different facets of the mansion's character. Through its annual events, Rosecliff remains vibrant and relevant. It continues to do what it was built to do: bring people together in a setting designed to inspire awe, connection, and memory. The tradition of celebration lives on, ensuring that Rosecliff is not just preserved, it is experienced. Rosecliff Mansion's cinematic presence has extended its fame far beyond Newport, Rhode Island. Its elegant design, sweeping interiors, and oceanfront terraces have made it a favorite location for filmmakers seeking glamour, history, and visual drama. From Hollywood blockbusters to period dramas, Rosecliff has repeatedly served as a living backdrop, allowing audiences worldwide to experience its grandeur, even if they don't realize the name behind. The mansion, one of the most famous uses of Rosecliff, came in The Great Gatsby, 1974 and 2013 adaptations, where it represented the extravagant homes of America's elite. The mansion's symmetrical architecture and grand ballroom perfectly captured the opulence described in F. Scott Fitzgerald's novel, reinforcing its association with luxury, power, and spectacle. Its interiors allowed directors to stage sweeping shots of social gatherings, echoing the very parties for which Rosecliff was originally built. Rosecliff has also appeared in romantic comedies, such as 27 Dresses, where its timeless elegance lent credibility to wedding scenes and social events. Its classic proportions, natural light, and refined details make it adaptable to a wide range of cinematic moods, from intimate romance to grand historical drama. Historical films and television series, including Amistad and HBO's The Gilded Age, have also utilized Rosecliff's authentic Gilded Age interiors to bring period accuracy to life. By filming on location, directors capture not only the architectural splendor, but also the sense of scale, light, and atmosphere that is difficult to replicate on sound stages. What sets Rosecliff apart from other filming locations is its versatility. The mansion can evoke multiple eras depending on lighting, decor, and camera angles. Its large rooms, high ceilings, and open floor plans make it ideal for camera movement, while terraces and gardens provide cinematic outdoor backdrops with natural vistas. Film and media exposure has had a reciprocal effect on Rosecliff's reputation. Movies introduce new audiences to the mansion, sparking tourism and public interest in its history. Visitors often arrive hoping to walk the same spaces they've seen on screen, blending pop culture fascination with historical appreciation. Rosecliff's cinematic use also reinforces its original purpose. Just as Gilded Age society gathered for spectacle, entertainment, and performance, modern media productions treat the mansion as a stage. The mansion's architecture is inherently performative. Its design emphasizes movement, perspective, and drama, qualities filmmakers instinctively recognize and exploit. In many ways, Rosecliff's appearances on screen ensure that its legacy continues beyond the preservation of walls and artifacts. Through film, the mansion lives on in global consciousness, inspiring awe, admiration, and curiosity. Its story, once confined to the social circles of Newport, now reaches audiences around the world, solidifying Rosecliff's place not only in history, but in the imagination. By serving as a bridge between historical reality and cinematic fantasy, Rosecliff demonstrates the enduring power of great architecture. It reminds us that a mansion built to host, entertain, and impress can continue to captivate generations long after its original inhabitants have departed. As we step back from Rosecliff Mansion, it's clear that this Newport icon is more than just walls of white stucco and grand ballrooms. It is a living testament to the ambition, elegance, and spectacle of the Gilded Age, a place where wealth met artistry, and every corner tells a story of vision and celebration. From Theresa Fair Oelrichs' daring social ambitions to Stanford White's architectural genius, from legendary parties to film sets seen around the world, Rosecliff continues to captivate hearts and imaginations. Walking through its gardens, terraces, and luminous interiors, you don't just witness history, you experience it. Rosecliff remains a bridge between past and present, inviting us to marvel, reflect, and imagine the grandeur of a world where social theater and architectural mastery went hand in hand. If you've enjoyed this deep dive into one of America's most iconic mansions, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more journeys behind the walls of history's most fascinating estates. And tell us in the comments, if you could attend one of Rosecliff's legendary parties, which era would you choose?